Hey guys, and welcome back to another video on Lumber Capital Log Yard. Today I'm going to be giving a tutorial on how to operate this LT40 Woodmizer with the AccuSet 2 computer. Without further ado, let's get into it. All of the Woodmizers are pretty similar to how they work. The main difference is probably going to be in what computer you have. In this video, we're going to be focusing on the AccuSet 2. I have worked with the simple set as well. That one's a lot more simple, as you can imagine. The hydraulics were the same on both mills. I don't know what all the mills are like, but the hydraulics are the same for the two mills that I have run. So Woodmizer might keep it simple in that sense, and we'll go over all of that here in a minute. I have gotten a few requests for this video. I know that I have made this video in the past, but it's also been a while, so it needs some revamping. So I hope that you guys can learn something from this video. If you just got your sawmill, this is the perfect video for you. So let's begin. First off, hearing protection, and then let's go ahead and get it started. So what you just saw me do there was just basically prepare the log to get ready to start milling, or to make your first cut anyhow. So it's all hydraulics. The log was on the arm. One thing that you have to remember to do is to put up your dogs before you roll it on. So this is really important. The third one over from the left is what's going to move your dogs up and down, and these stop your log from rolling back off the other side of your mill, and that would really suck, especially how we have this mill set up. So the dogs go up, then the arm comes up and rolls the log on, and I have it ready to make our first cut. So let's do that. One thing I wanted to quickly mention is that if there's any taper in your log, you might want to utilize one of your rollers to level it out. You just have to remember to put it down on the second cut. So for this one, it's not too tapered. I might just put up a little bit. It doesn't even really need it, but that makes it a lot more level, and it's going to make the piece, your slab coming off, a lot more even as well. So let's go ahead and make this first cut now. Now we have made the first cut. It was a very small cut because this is a very small log. The first cut that you make is random. You can technically just cut it anywhere. Obviously you don't want to cut it too big because you don't want to waste wood, so I always cut it on the smaller end and then make another cut after that if I feel like I need to. To operate the blade, all you have to do is flick it on. So this is the blade right here. You saw me do this a second ago. It has to be basically flicked flicked over, and then you flick on the blade, and then you saw me turn on the debarker, push that in. If you don't have the debarker, that's not going to matter, but we did. That was an option for this mill, so we do have the debarker. I recommend it. And then I also put down the blade, the board drawback, and put in the blade guide. So a lot of little adjustments there that have to happen. and I'm gonna go over a little bit more of that here in a second. But we just made our first cut, and I might just go and turn it. We are just plain sawing this log. It's probably going to be like 1x8s or 1x6s. We'll take, we'll see once we get there. So I'm gonna go ahead and now rotate this log 180 degrees. And to do that, I'm going to use this lever up. So what it's going to do is it's going to bring up the dogs, and then if I keep on holding it up, it's going to bring up the claw, and you're going to see that happen here in a second. Now we are ready to make our second cut, and I'm going to cut it to how wide I want my boards, so probably 8 inches. And what I mean when I say I'm going to cut it at 8 inches is I'm going to basically take a look at this, and this measures from the bed of your mill up. So if I line my little eyeing device right up with the 8, then I know that I am exactly 8 inches off of the bed of the mill. And when I turn my log then and make a cut, it's going to be 8 inches wide, and that's exactly what we're going for. So that's the next step. Now that we have taken off our second slab, I wanted to kind of go over the feed rate situation here. Your feed rate is this dial right here, and that's going to be how quickly your head moves back and forth through your log. And so how, as the operator, do you know how fast to go? Because that's a question that I do get a lot. And my only answer to that would be to listen to your machine. There is a middle ground that you want to try and find. Your machine likes to work, it doesn't like to struggle. So if it sounds like it's just moving through the wood very easily, you can turn up the speed a little bit, it can go a little bit faster. If it's struggling, you definitely want to turn it down, but you want to hear it working a little bit, and that's just that middle ground that I wanted to mention. That's the best way to know, as the operator, how fast you need to go. And another thing about this is your head's not going to move back and forth, moving the dial, unless your lever on this side is forward. So it's same with the debarker as well, and your Woodmizer. It's all going to turn off once it goes back to neutral, and then of course to pull back your head it goes forward even more. But when it's just in neutral like that, your debarker's going to flick off, your water's going to turn off, and you're not going to be able to move your dial at all back and forth. So definitely, if you're like, wait, why isn't it moving, make sure that that lever's clicked in the forward position there. I've turned my log 90 degrees, and now it's important to make sure that the flat side of this log is very snug with your dogs. That way you have a squared log when you're all done, or squared cant when you're all done. I'm going to make this cut and then rotate it and cut off the last slab, and then at that point we'll have it all canted up and we can start actually cutting the lumber off of it. So let's get to it. Now that we have removed all 4 slabs, we're ready to move on to the second half of milling a log. I did want to quickly summarize everything that we've done so far. So the first cut is, as I've already stated, a random cut, which means that it doesn't have to particularly be on a specific inch. It can be kind of random. When you turn your log 180 degrees to take off your second slab, that one is going to be a specific cut. You want to cut it on the inch. So even if you want an 8-inch cant, but you want to take a flitch off, you're still going to want to cut on the inch. You're going to want to cut at 9 and then cut down again to 8. But that way you have an inch board, so it's not going to be a waste cut. That's basically the goal of that, is to not create a waste cut there. And then once you flip again, which would be 90 degrees to cut off your third slab, this one is once again going to be random. When it's a random cut, you can use your rollers. So this cut, just like I already stated, it doesn't have to be on a particular inch. You can also take off a jacket board if you feel like you need to by dropping an inch. If you want to do that, you use auto down, and that's going to be this one right here. You can set it for an inch. See, auto down, you set it for an inch. You can set it to drop anything, but as you can see, I have it set to drop an inch. If you would like that, you can set yours to do that as well. Now, the last cut is once again not random. This one is particular. So do you notice a pattern here? We have random, specific, random, specific. That's how we do it here. At least that's the method that I use. You could just turn it 90 degrees every time, and then it'd be random, random, specific, specific. It'd change it up a little bit. Anyhow, that's just getting really nitpicky there. We are all canted up here. The last cut, if you are using this AccuSet 2 computer, the last cut, you do want to use your pattern instead of auto down or anything. So the last slab I took off, what I did was I went to pattern, and I obviously have different sizes programmed in there. You'll have to do that too with your computer. I do have videos on that, so if you're subscribed to the channel, I have all kinds of much more detailed information on all that. But I already have all of the dimensions that I use on a regular basis programmed into my computer here. And as you can see, this is just going to drop it 1 inch every time. And since that's what I'm going for, a 1x8, that's what I'm gonna have. So what I did before I cut off my last slab was I basically went to the top of it, went onto my pattern, and then I dropped it, and then I cut it. And now from there, what pattern does is it measures from the bottom up instead of auto down. So it's going to drop me perfectly 1 inch all the way to the bottom. And then the last cut, because this computer is smart, all right, it's going to be 1 inch. It's going to be perfect. So that's one thing about the AccuSet. It's very accurate. And so we're going to get perfect 1 inch boards all the way down from here if you do it right. So the computer can be tricky to get when you first get started off, but honestly it gets a lot easier once you get more familiar with it. So let's go ahead and start plain sawing, just plain cutting all the way down. An important note for any beginners, there is no safety mechanism installed in this mill to prevent you from running into your dogs or really any part of this mill with your blade. So you have to constantly be thinking about moving your dogs and your little foot just in and down as you start to cut lower and lower and lower, because we're cutting down and the last cut's technically going to be at 1 inch, which is very close to the bed of your mill. If you look at this, this is 3/4 up on the mill deck. So basically you can't cut any lower than 1 inch or you will run into that, but you can still cut 1 inch. So that's really close to the bed of your mill. So your dogs have to be all the way down, which makes it very hard to pinch your log because the foot of it has to be so low to the bed of your mill. So if there's any bark on it, that usually doesn't work. It can be really tricky. It just takes a lot of messing around with. Basically, if you want to take a look at some of the damage I've done to this bad boy here, the blade cuts right through metal. So yes, I have hit this before and it just cut right through it. This is the side that I did not hit. This is what it's supposed to look like, but you can see where the blade just went right into that there, and basically I just couldn't see it, and yeah, I hit it and the blade will just go right through it. Obviously I've hit multiple times on the other mill. This would be the first time I've hit something on this mill. We've had this mill for like 3 years, so I've done pretty good, but yeah, I hit that recently. You have to just watch. There's nothing going to stop you from running it right into stuff, so always be paying attention, and it's always better to just have them low, even though it doesn't hold your log as good or as tight. So it's just finding that middle ground once again. Anyways, let's finish up with cutting this log now. We have completed a whole log and we're ready to move on to the second one. A log about that size can take around 6 minutes if you hurry, which is pretty good when you can consider how many you can do in a day. But like I did say, that was a small log, and what you're going to notice with the larger logs is you're making a lot more cuts because you're taking off a lot of jacket boards to cut it down to the size that you actually want it. Anyways, thanks for watching today's video. If you enjoyed, make sure that you subscribe to the channel where I give a lot more in-depth information about this mill and really dive into all of the very specific little everythings that come along with operating it. Anyways, I'll see you back here next time.